This is the story of how archaeologists have uncovered the lost civilization behind the myth of El Dorado. But this was not a kingdom of gold. The secret of the real El Dorado was something far more valuable, something with the power to transform our world.
In 1541, the Spanish conquistador Francisco de Orellana sailed down the Amazon River in search of El Dorado. And although he never found the mythical city of gold, he left a rich testimony of the wonders he encountered throughout the epic journey.
Inland from the river, at a distance of 6 miles more or less, there could be seen some very large cities that glistened in white. And besides this, the land is as fertile and as normal in appearance as our Spain.
But when, a few years later, the Spanish returned to the Amazon in search of the kingdoms Orellana had described, they found nothing. For 500 years, the myth of El Dorado has lured adventurers and explorers into the jungles of South America. Only intensive agriculture produces enough food to sustain large settled populations. But in the Amazon, all attempts at intensive agriculture have led to disaster. The yellow jungle soil is just too poor.
In other words, the forest may look lush, but it is not fertile. The only kind of agriculture the Amazon could support was the kind of small-scale cultivation practiced by many of today's indigenous population. It was thought that the Amazon never had, never could, and never would sustain big or complex human populations. But the question of how they sustained themselves in a region ill-suited to agriculture remained.
It's somewhat difficult to see, but near the top of this low bluff along the Tapajos, we have very dark soil. This is just a very good example of what covers tens of thousands of hectares in the local region.
This black soil, or Terra Preta as the Brazilians call it, is dotted all over the Amazon jungle. But what intrigued archaeologists is what it contains.
After just a minute or two, I was able to pick up several handfuls of really dramatic pottery sherds. If we can imagine what the whole jars would look like, we'd be rather surprised by these fine works of art.
The pottery they have found is exquisite, and much of it dates from the time of Christ, long before the coming of the Europeans. It was the first hard proof that there had once been an advanced culture in the heart of the rainforest. And when they dug down into the Terra Preta, scientists made the most revealing discovery of all. Not only was the black soil full of pottery, but it was almost exactly the same composition as the yellow jungle soil around it, except it had been mixed with organic waste. That meant the Terra Preta had to be man-made.
We know that this Terra Preta here formed with this soil. So they look very different, and they are very different in a way, but that's the matrix for that. But we have to have human action interfering in the yellow soil in order to create the Terra Preta.
It was the key revelation. It meant that wherever you find Terra Preta, there people had once lived. So scientists have started mapping the black soil. And wherever Orellana reported seeing settlements, there they have found it. All along the banks of the Amazon, up the Rio Negro and down the Tapajos, they are finding the Terra Preta. In all, a massive area, twice the size of Britain.
One problem with contemporary agriculture in the tropics is that one has to put a lot of fertilizers, and very fast, after 2 or 3 years, those fertilizers are washed away by the rain. Terra Preta soils, they don't lose their nutrients. They're very stable for over hundreds of years.
We plant papaya, we plant banana, corn, beans and manioc in Terra Preta. Whatever you plant in Terra Preta does exceptionally well.
Terra Preta is so fertile that it's been prized by Brazilian farmers for centuries. Somehow, the prehistoric Amazonians had transformed the world's worst soil into some of the best. The prehistoric people of the central Amazon transformed the very earth beneath their feet. From their black soil sprang a civilization that lasted for over 1,000 years. They built towns and even cities that spread across the jungle. But if there really had been a great society here, what had become of it? How could it have disappeared so suddenly?
It's thought that maybe up to 90–95% of indigenous peoples were actually decimated by European diseases to which they had very little resistance.
So what Europeans after Orellana saw when they visited the Amazon was a sparsely populated region inhabited by the few survivors of these devastating waves of disease.
Today, the Amazon rainforest is under threat as never before. Millions of acres are being wiped out every year as farmers slash and burn their way across the jungle in a largely futile attempt to turn it into farmland. The problem is, once the forest has been cleared, the rain just washes all the goodness out of the soil. Often, after just a few years, the farmers have to move on, leaving only wasteland behind. It's one of the great environmental disasters. If millions of prehistoric Indians once lived sustainably in the Amazon, then perhaps we can learn from them. Detailed analysis of the Terra Preta has shown it to be full of burned plant material, but in a special form: charcoal.
Charcoal is, in the area here, made largely with earthen kilns, where organic material like these logs are piled up and earthen mounds are built around them, and under partial exclusion of oxygen you get this charcoal.
Charcoal is made when you only partially burn the trees and plants. This makes it different to slash and burn, where the plant life and all the nutrients it contains are completely reduced to ash. This can be swiftly washed away by the rain. But charcoal can last in the soil for hundreds of years.
So one of the hypotheses is that the Amerindian populations actually used some sort of slash and char technique as a soil fertility enhancer.
On this plot we see what happens if we follow the traditional slash and burn technique. After the first harvest already there's nothing growing anymore, and we have here now the third harvest. Here on this plot we applied mineral fertilizer, but that is not very satisfying. If you look on this, there's almost no yield, almost no grain. A family couldn't live on this. That is not satisfying yield. In comparison to a plot where we applied additional charcoal. There we can see that the yield is much bigger, so there is corn. And this is a plot where we applied charcoal and mineral fertilizer. And this combination, last harvest we had an increase in crop production of 880% in comparison to mineral fertilizer without charcoal.
An 880% increase in yield is almost miraculous. Charcoal seems to hold the nutrients in the soil, preventing them from being washed away by the rains. It's a simple trick, but one that Steiner believes could be the key to breaking the destructive cycle of slash and burn, and so reduce the pressure on the rainforest.
Increased soil fertility means bigger crop production, and people can use the same piece of land for more time for more crop production and are not forced to clear a new piece of primary intact tropical rainforest.
And scientists now believe that Terra Preta holds yet one more secret. It seems to have another unique property, something that may once have helped it to spread across the Amazon and could now help it spread across the world. The discovery has been made by Bill Woods. A few years ago, he came across a place where Terra Preta was being mined and then sold on to local gardeners.
What we have here is a material that is so valuable that people are coming in trucks and buying it. Absolutely unexpected.
With decent soil so scarce in the Amazon, selling the Terra Preta seems an odd thing for a farmer to do. But here they've been doing it for 20 years, because it appears that the black earth just keeps growing back.
After digging, the soil that's left will grow deeper. It's because it's being fed by the leaves that fall on it. You can see it happening over there and in there now.
The situation is he mines it, he leaves 20 centimeters, he allows it to rest. Then after a 20-year period, the depth of this dark soil is the same as it was before the mining operation. This is extremely important in that it strongly suggests that the material is alive and that the biology of this material is the important thing that we're looking at.
If Woods is right, then Terra Preta can, in some mysterious way, reproduce itself, just like a living thing. Scientists are now working to find out how it does it. There are literally tens of thousands of species of bacteria and fungi in the soil. And they suspect that somewhere among them must be unique microorganisms that allow the Terra Preta to grow. The hope is that if they can unlock its secrets, we could reproduce Terra Preta anywhere. Then we could boost food production throughout the developing world. We could bring a halt to slash and burn. It sounds too good to be true, but the Indians' black earth could one day help to feed the world and save the rainforest. So there is a true irony to the story of the hunt for El Dorado. There was once a great civilization in the Amazon, one the Europeans destroyed, even as they discovered it. But the Amazonians may have left us a legacy far more precious than the gold the conquistadors were seeking. That black earth, the Terra Preta, may mean a better future for us all.